Hello, hi there. Remember us? It's been a while. You have discovered the Marry Your Best Friend podcast. Probably the best podcast on the entire internet, specifically focused on, well, I don't know what it's focused on, but our target audience is a 55-year-old female. I think we have one big guest, or one big fan. So, welcome, fan. Glad you're here. Today, I'm John, and this is my beautiful bride, Suzanne. And, well, one of us needs therapy.
One of us?
I think one of us does need therapy.
I think all 6 of the Stewarts need therapy.
You do. Well, this whole episode, we're going to talk about therapy, but my Lord, Suzanne, it has been a minute since we have been together. And
hot minute.
Hot minute. You'll notice, I think we actually have 2 fans. One of the fans watches online and follows YouTube and watches the videos, and we are thankful for that fan. And if you're watching YouTube on the big screen TV and you've got stream there and you're watching it, our camera's not really working today because somebody forgot our producer. I'm going to blame the producer.
Please blame him.
The producer messed up and did not bring the proper equipment. So we're going back to old school where you can kind of see me and then you can see Suzanne, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, the other listener does listen on a podcast streaming platform, and that's probably the better way to listen today. Suzanne looks beautiful, though, so you might want to.
Yes, I'm wearing a gift given to me by my children.
What does it say for those that are listening?
It says, "Dear Mom, great job. We're awesome," and it has a caricature of all of my children and me.
That is lovely. Mm-hmm. Where's Dad in that picture?
I'm sorry, did you not hear Dear Mom?
I get it.
Dear Mom.
I get it. But
Mom.
Yeah, should be at least one picture of Dad somewhere in there, but I guess not in this.
No.
In this podcast. Anyway, hey, it's been a minute since we've been in this. So we've been busy. Everybody's been busy.
It's been crazy.
It has been crazy, but I will tell you that
a lot to catch up on.
A lot to catch up on. A lot's happened. So our last podcast was actually about loving the summer.
I know, and I'm loving the summer. Like right now, as I look outside and I see hard snow.
Yeah.
Not even the good snow, but the hard kind where it's kind of melty but still slippery.
Yep.
And ugly because it's dirty.
And those people who love our pictures on social media of how pretty our farm is and how great our animals are. You know, we've got like 50 lives around here. We got
just wait till the snow melts.
As soon as the snow melts, first off, feeding
the
snow, it's kind of hard. But then when it all melts, there's just this wonderful goat smell that kind of permeates the air. It's awesome. But okay, so a lot's happened. By the way, I recently I was in Orlando. We'll get to this, but I was in Orlando and I appeared and I went to...
What do you mean you appeared? You just appeared?
I made an appearance. I made an appearance. I didn't stay there for the whole thing, but it was called the Pod Fest.
You actually went. You talked about it, but you didn't tell me.
No. I went to the Podfest, and I went to the opening day and did the expos and that kind of stuff. It was like a 4-day event. I kind of did it in about an hour and a half. But
we could be good at this if we tried.
Well, so one of the things that was interesting about the Podfest is, I bought a book about how to do a podcast.
When we first started
this a couple years ago.
And you never read it.
Well, no, but it'd probably be a good idea to read it now that we actually are doing this. But being in the so there's a lot of influencers there. There are a lot of anybody who has a big podcast.
Influencers. I hate that so much.
I was there. They didn't care so much that I was the co-host.
Did they think you were an influencer?
They didn't care that I was the co-host of the Marry Your Best Friend podcast.
Co-host.
But when they found out that I was the executive producer,
small town big deal.
I was a big deal, and they all wanted to kind of talk about that. But anyway, what was interesting though, the one thing I learned there was that there's a thing called podcast fatigue. By people who produce a podcast on a weekly basis or daily basis or 3 times a week or on a monthly basis, that after you do...
Or like us, like whenever you feel like have 5 minutes in the same room together.
Well, and it's funny because for at least the past month or 2, you've been saying, we need to do a podcast. I'm like, yeah, we do. And we both agree on it. And we're both like enthusiastically wanting to do a podcast. And
there's just no happy medium...
No,
on the calendar for us.
There's a lot going on. So since our last podcast, let me just throw some of the stuff out there. Since we're talking about therapy, if we just say some of the things we've done since our last podcast, people might go, yeah, they do need therapy.
Or how much therapy have you been in?
Yes. So number one, lots happened. There was an election. So we had a whole episode about you running for office.
We did.
By the way, there was also a presidential election, and the country kind of, whether.
Can we not talk about that? Can this be one platform where nobody can hear?
But I'm just saying, there was an election, and it was a presidential election, and
a lot has happened in our country.
No matter which side you're on, you're either pleased or not pleased, or you're accepting it or you're not accepting it, whatever it is. In our life, enough about Trump and Biden. In our life, Hamilton Southeastern School Board elections were turned out differently than that I had hoped. They turned out exactly like you had hoped. So, if you're following at home, I ran for school board and did not win. Suzanne and Jay Daniel were praying against me winning. And even though we are in the most Republican county in a Republican state, and even though every single Republican office got voted in, for some reason, our school board elections, like we had 20,000 votes in HSC school district that voted straight ticket Republican, but didn't go down the ballot to vote for the nonpartisan.
Well, I really think that was the Lord's will.
I know you do. But what I was going to say is,
because I just don't know how you would fit that in the schedule.
Oh, I would have done it.
And plus, it made me so crazy. I don't think I could have taken another day. One of my besties said yesterday, she said, I'm just going to quit Facebook for a while. It's too political. Everything that's coming across my page is just too much right now, and it's making me sad, and people are upset, and yada, yada. And I said, you know what? Since the election is over, I just if that's something that comes up, I just scroll on by because, 58 and not Karen is...
Not Karen? Are you not a Karen?
No,
or
not caring.
Oh, sorry, that was Texas pronunciation of Karen.
Yeah, not caring.
Okay, got it.
Not giving a rat's ass.
Yeah, but anyway.
Is a wonderful feeling.
So, but I will tell you, the election, though, it's like I had set... Now, first off... hopefully you don't know how to go online. They're public records, but you can go online and look at the...
I want to look at nothing.
Well, there's a thing that every candidate has to fill out, and it's the finance report that shows who all donated to the campaign and how much you spent on the campaign. I sure as hell don't want to look at that. Well, that's great because I paid for the campaign.
I figured that's why I don't want to look at it. I don't want to know how much you spent on that ridiculous picture.
But don't forget, I do have some extra signs out there that we can use in the pig pen if we need it. But
we thought about using those for sledding when it snowed.
Well, I actually kept those big signs. So
that's what I mean, those big signs.
Yeah. We can use them for windbreak. But what I was going to say, though, is I learned so much that it was worth running for office just to get to know all the people in the Republican Party in here in Hamilton County, to understand going through the debate process. The truth of the matter is we've got a school board of 7. There are 4 conservatives who are already on there.
Remember how we weren't going to talk about this?
We're not talking about it. But all I'm saying is it was a wonderful experience, even though I got torn up, torn down, attacked.
They chewed
ridiculed.
You up and spit you out.
They did. But everything they chewed me up over, if they actually knew the truth, then I think,
Yeah.
But
it was honestly some of the things that were brought up in this campaign that had absolutely nothing to do with it, but were personal slander against you, against our family, when they did not know the situation. They did not know the facts as they were presented. I mean, they knew them as they were presented.
People who were just attacking for the sake of attacking.
Yeah, but I mean, just to say mean things, that is not for us. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, you tried it, and I feel like if you need to be authentic, and if people can't respond to you in that same authenticity of knowing all the facts, then they just need to keep their pie hole shut. Yeah. It's just wrong.
The reality
is, it really did a number on me as far as realizing that the people I see at the grocery store out here in my nice little area where I live, my little bubble, they're just downright mean.
People can hide behind all that.
And I just don't like it. I don't want to be in that world.
But I tell you, the thing that I was asked to run, I ran because I was asked. I thought I could make a difference. I wasn't a great candidate. They needed somebody like a Patrick Lima or somebody who was a really good citizen. Somebody who actually... But somebody
was here more than 2 days a week.
I cared and I thought I could make a difference.
Yeah.
The reality is I had an incredible learning experience. I have such an appreciation for those people in office. Every time I got attacked, I messaged like Micah Beckwith, who's our now lieutenant governor. He got roasted.
People don't like him either.
But people call him a Christian nationalist and they call him all this kind of stuff. But he's a Christian brother. And it's like I messaged him, like, I know I'm getting attacked, but you're getting it 10 times worse. And it affects
It's
your
not
marriage.
for us.
But we talk about therapy. It affects your marriage, it affects your family. How did you feel when people were attacking the man that you knew and they didn't know? Like, the person they were attacking was different than the man you married to.
There were a couple times I was, I am sweet.
You are pretty sweet.
I love everybody, and honestly, everybody really loves me. But let me tell you, don't come after my children. Don't come after my husband. Don't come after my family. I will take you out.
There you go. All right, so that's enough of the election. We're done with running for office for a little while. We also had, we traveled to Brazil. Actually, it was interesting because we had the election. We went to Brazil before the election. Had a great time with all of our
it was
our scouting
before.
friends.
Man, it all just kind of blurs together. We've
great.
had quite the
we had a great time. Once a year, we get
few
to go
months.
on this World Scout Foundation trip, and just the people that get to go that you spend time with are incredible people. I mean, awesome couples and
places that
individuals
I've
and
never
young
been.
people.
I mean,
well,
you had never been to Brazil either,
no.
have you?
No, but then you like spending time with like Ella. It's like these great
They're
young people who
adorable.
came up through scouting or involved
Yeah.
in scouting, and they're just incredible. And then to see what the scout movement is doing in countries like Brazil when they had floods, or like in Africa what's going on. They have an impact seminar. It was awesome, and they have a lot of wealthy philanthropists that are there. We're like in the back row. And
I'm totally just like, is that a buffet? Okay, I'll show up over there. Is that an open bar? Yeah, pick me.
We're there. But there's a lot of people who
Hobnobbing with people I have no idea who they are.
There are people who
in
are very
real life.
generous. We are as generous as we can be, but going to a seminar like that where you see where your money's going, the gift that we make, it's a sacrificial gift for the two of us to give the World Scout Foundation, but it's something we believe in. We believe in the scouting movement. We believe in not only what it did with our own kids, but what's happening around the world. So that was an incredible trip. And then we had the election, and just like Kamala Harris, what did I do?
You said her name wrong.
Well, I said it the way I say it. She calls me Juan, so what do you want to do about that? So,
no.
What I was going to tell you.
N-O, we're done with all
so
that.
Are we Kamala? Is that what you want to call her?
I just don't want you to say it at all.
Okay, here's what I'm saying. It's just like Kamala. We went to Hawaii.
As people turn the
We
channel.
went to Hawaii. You don't turn a podcast channel, I don't think, do you? Do you have a flipper? So
You can turn it
We
off
went to
and go
Hawaii
to
for a
the-
week. We had a great week in Hawaii. That was a great rest and relaxation.
It was fantastic.
And then I don't know.
I think it's one of the best trips we've had in a while. That was really good therapy for me.
Yeah.
Like, I needed it desperately because I've been momming everybody a little extra,
It was a good trip.
and I needed that.
Well, and then don't forget, I also had my 25th reunion, my class reunion. We all got together.
I missed that
that was
because I was with my mom in the hospital. So
that's right.
that's the other thing. I was in Texas for 2 weeks taking care of my mom with my brother who had already been doing it for 2 weeks.
Yada yada, she lived. Okay, so
Yes, but it was 2 weeks staying with my mom
get
in
it.
the rehab hospital.
I get it. She
Yeah.
lived.
At one point, this is
still with
pretty
us.
funny.
She's
At
still
one
here.
point, they came in. It
She
was
didn't pass.
it's
She's
a
still here.
teaching. Listen, it's a
I'm listening.
teaching.
I'm just thinking about if we had to honor your mom's death. But anyway,
It's a teaching facility apparently. So they had rotation of students come in, and they come in and they were doing a favor by letting me stay in the rehab room with her. Like, they just don't do that for everybody. But I mean, come on.
yeah, I got it.
People
Keep going.
don't say no to me. So I am sleeping in the bed next to her, and they come in and they flip on those fluorescent lights, no matter if you're asleep or what. I mean, it just wakes you up, and they just start talking loud. So one of them was a new nurse, like, had just changed her shift, and the other one was a nurse that was learning. And so she comes in and she's telling her that my mom's bed is not where it's supposed to be, like it's too high, she can't get off. And you don't have any idea how long it took me to get it just where she wanted it. You know, you have to push it and it goes up a little and down a little and all that. Get her just right. And I woke up and I said, no, please don't touch that. She's fine. She's good. And then they came over to me and they looked, and she goes, "You're too high," because mine was kind of high. And I said, "No, I'm fine. Please don't touch that." And the lady goes, "Aren't you?" I said, "I am not a patient." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, I forgot. We got an email saying that you're the daughter and you're staying here." And I was like, "Yes, please don't touch any of my stuff." They thought I was a patient, and they were fixing to doctor me up, fix my bed.
This.
Yeah, it was a crazy 2 weeks.
Okay, so you came back
I
from
definitely
Texas. You
needed
came back from
therapy after
Texas.
that.
I bought like 3 or 4 cars at an auction. We
I like how you just gloss over that, gloss over it, just like bought 3 or 4 cars and not.
well, let me tell you something. We already had a car episode, but I bought the dream car. The car that I have been dreaming of and wanting since 1978.
Oh, that car.
Yeah, my first.
I had to scroll in my mind through all
waiting.
the idiot cars that you brought home. Okay.
Well, I bought my dream car. The first Indy 500 I ever went to was with my dad. We road tripped from Atlanta, Georgia. Bought that 1970. We took a picture of it. I loved. Well, in the 70s, I wanted to be a preacher. And I thought, if I could be a preacher and a professional fisherman, I was going to fish during the week and then be a fisherman on the weekend.
You would be a pro fisherman and a preacher.
Both. That's okay. I was a kid, and what car did I want to pull my
Fishers of Men, man?
and what car did I want to pull my boat trailer with? A Corvette, because it was the 70s. I thought it'd be so cool to have a yellow Corvette pulling a yellow Hydro Sports bass boat down the road with the Evinrude engine. Anyway, that was my dream, to be a fisherman during the week and fisherman on the weekend. Well, what's funny is we went to the Indy 500. It was before we lived in Indiana. I saw that car. I dreamed of that car. I thought it was the coolest car. It was the 25th anniversary of.
You got a picture of you with that car.
I do have a picture of me with that car.
And your dad.
I did. And then back in 2022, the weekend my father passed. He passed on a Monday, but that weekend I was at a race in St. Louis, Missouri, and like Wednesday before I went to the race, I told Dad, goodbye. And my brother on Thursday thought that my dad was going to die that day. He said, "Dad's passing today. The hospice has told us that this is the time." And I was really moved by that. And I didn't want him to die while I was gone. So I called John Andrew and I said, "John Andrew, tell Grandpa to hold on. Just tell him I'll be there on Sunday."
Oh, because John Andrew was there?
He was there. And I said, because David wanted him to go. David was ready for him to pass because David had a trip on Monday. That's honestly the truth. Anyway, What's so funny is, so I went to John Andrew and said, "Hey, go tell Grandpa, hold on till Sunday. I'm coming back." And I had a webcam in his room, then his hospital room while I was watching all that kind of stuff. And so Friday, I look out the window where I was working out of, and I see the vintage Indy cars. And they have all the old Indy cars there. And there was the 1978 pace car sitting there. And
the same one.
The same one. I went out there to talk to. I said, "Who owns this car?" And the guy came over and says,
"Did you do it like that? Who owns this car?" I said,
"Who owns this car?" They
took
said,
charge.
I did. They said Wes Edwards, and so Wes Edwards came over. Nice guy from Missouri. We've become friends since. But I said, "Hey, I really want to buy this car." And he said, "It's not for sale." I said, "Well, I really want to buy one." He goes, "I'll help you find one." And he said they made like 6,000 or 5,000 with stickers on it that went to dealerships. But he goes, "There's only really 33 to 40 that were actually at the Speedway." He goes, "So
why do they have that many, by the way?"
Well, because it was the 25th anniversary for Corvette.
Because they don't normally have that many.
No, but Corvette made a bunch of pace cars to sell in dealerships so people could buy that anniversary edition. So there's like 3 different kinds of that pace car. They have an anniversary edition, which was not really a pace car.
Yeah, but how many were actually used as pace cars? Just 2 or 3, right?
There's 2, as I've been told, there were 2 or 3 that were used for pace car duties. There was another 33 that were there for the parade duties.
That's what I was going to say.
Those are official pace cars.
Okay, gotcha.
So they're not the ones with the lights on them. They're the ones that the princesses would have ridden in.
Yeah.
That the drivers would have ridden in the parade.
Gotcha.
Or, that type of stuff. And so, but then there's
they
also
were actively used during the 500
Yeah, they were there during the month of May. And then they were sold to dealerships or sold individually.
Okay.
But they made a bunch of pace cars. And for those of you who are not watching, I'm using the quotations.
The quotes.
Pace cars.
Air quotes.
They sold a bunch of those pace cars over to dealerships so they could buy them. Well, what's interesting about this is, so I saw 2 were coming up in a Mecum auction. I called Wes. I gave him the VINs. He said, "Okay, this one had very low mileage." He says, "That's not an official one, but it's got really great low mileage."
So let me interrupt you right here. My understanding is you were watching or there at Mecum auction and you miraculously see this pace car.
Don't let the truth stand in front of the story, because here's the truth.
And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it's the pace car. You actually had somebody helping you look for this pace car?
For 2 years, I've been looking for this pace car. But here's what I was going to tell you.
I thought it was...
No. Like, you didn't know I bought the pace car until you heard it fire up in the church parking lot. And
this is true.
Okay, so let me back up. So that weekend, I talked to Wes. He tells me the pace car stories, and there's another car. So like, there's a guy, I saw one on Facebook advertised. The guy was selling one, and his is what they call a tribute pace car, which means
it's not the real deal.
It looks just like mine. It was a Corvette from that same year.
Yeah.
Same paint scheme even. And they put decals on it. So it's an anniversary edition. They put decals on it.
But it's not real.
It's not a real pace car. And it was never titled as a pace car. Anyway.
It was a dupe.
It was, yeah. So I saw that pace car. I drove Saturday night all through the night, get back to Texas. Dad passes on Monday. I've just had an emotional attachment wanting one of those cars. So I go to the Mecum auction. They had two going through. One had low mileage, but it was an official. It wasn't.
Back up. You went to Mecum auction knowing already that this Corvette was coming through. See, because this was not explained to me.
Excuse me. Every single Mecum auction, I have in my eye on something. But anyway, so as we go,
wow.
I had two different ones.
The deception level
There's no deception.
is
hope.
Way above board.
Hope and anticipation of God's fulfilling my dream.
Because I am finding this out this moment.
Okay, let me tell you the story. So there's two that went through. Thursday's was a low mileage car, but it wasn't an official pace car. It was sold to the dealerships. It wasn't one of the 33 that were here. Saturday's was a real pace car. One that the VIN shows that it would have been at the use of the Speedway, and it was a real pace car, but it had higher mileage. And I was like, that's okay.
Well, who cares? You're not going to drive it.
I wanted a higher mileage car so I could drive it. Because some people who buy a car with like 3,000 miles, they never drive it because they don't want to put any more miles on it. If I put 1,000 miles on that car, who cares? But
I don't think you ever will put that many miles on it because you just rub it with a diaper and park it under a thing.
It is parked under a thing and rubbed with a diaper. But anyway. Well, and I will tell you, when I bought the car, I picked it up. The first drive, I took the T-tops off. I go down the road. And I just start bursting in tears.
It is pretty emotional.
I just start crying because I feel like my father who's left me is riding with me. I love this whole feeling. I have this car that means so much to me. And then if you've had a family member pass or a relative and you feel a connection with them, even though they're in heaven, I immediately felt like my father was saying to me, why the hell did you buy that car? Why'd you spend so much money on that car?
That is so your
The
dad.
last thing you need is that car. And that's just stupid. Yeah, I remember that car. Why does it mean so much to you?
But if your dad had been alive and knew how much you wanted that car, that man would have bought you that car.
I know he would have. And well, I'll go back to I bought John
He's
Andrew.
just as sentimental you are.
Years ago, I bought John Andrew a 1966 truck, Super Duty truck.
No, I'm sorry, 1996.
Sorry, I bought a 1996 Super Duty truck, which is the year my son was born. And I remember my dad goes, I can't believe you overpaid for that. You paid too much for that old truck. I said, Dad, it's a show truck. It's got pipes. And he goes, well, you paid too much for it. And I said, well, I wish I had a father that bought me a truck for my birth year. And about 5 minutes goes by, and he goes, am I supposed to buy you a 66 pickup? And I was like, yes, I think that's a great idea. He never did. I bought the 66 pickup myself. But anyway, going back to that car, I cry when I drive that car. I love that car. And it's just...
It is special.
It's a
I do give you a
moment.
hard time about it because you can't just buy one vehicle at an auction. And
Okay, so I bought another car there.
you have to have
Yeah, we did buy a
so
couple
many
of cars, but I get it.
ridiculous
Okay, so moving on past that.
purchases.
Let's just point out to the audience that I did not plan to speak about the Mecum auction or cars, but you pulled that out as I was just mentioning all the things we've done.
All the
since
things
last
we need
podcast.
therapy about is all the cars.
Okay, Christmas. We didn't do a podcast during Christmas, but I will tell you, Christmas this year in the Stewart household is probably the best it's been ever. It was awesome.
Really, you think the
Oh,
best?
My Lord, Suzanne, nobody does Christmas like you.
Oh,
we had a
sweet.
great Thanksgiving. We had a great Thanksgiving with the friends coming over. That it was their very first American Thanksgiving.
I did have fun doing
They
that
brought a
because it
baby
was
and they
their
brought their
first.
kids and
Their daughter says to me, I'm laying the food out. Yeah.
She's French Canadian. The daughter's French Canadian. The
No,
dad.
the
mom and the daughter from French Canadian.
and Josh.
Yeah, and Josh. But the dad is really this pain in the ass guy from the UK.
You love it.
I do. But anyway, they came and joined us. It was their first American Thanksgiving. It was awesome. And then the Advent season, I just love Advent leading up to Christmas. And then this year we had Christmas lights out on the outside of the house.
First time since you
Shattered my elbow and
Yep.
cost $80,000 on my elbow.
25 years ago, maybe.
It wasn't. It's
It's been at least 25 years. That seems crazy.
Anyway, but then Christmas was absolutely. And if you've got young kids and you're listening to this podcast, at some point it gets better. When the kids are older, it's so cool to have a relationship with these really cool. We raised really cool kids.
We
And
did.
They're 20. I mean, they're all adults now, and it's just fun. And we had a great Christmas. I don't think we opened presents until 10 a.m. So the 5 a.m. present days,
Oh, thank the Lord, those are done.
yeah, they're not forever. And we just had an awesome Christmas. Then you let me go to the Liberty Bowl down in Memphis and cheer on the Razorbacks, which is fun. And then we get to January. So we're wrapping up January when the podcast is.
January is my month from hell. I hate January.
Well, it was so cold here. And of course, I was in Florida for 2 weeks and most of the time and left you here alone with 0
During
degrees.
the blizzard.
Yeah, but I went to another Mecum auction, bought some more cars. Went to the roll. Well,
Ask me what I've purchased.
Okay.
What have I purchased? Gas,
So-
food.
I did the Rolex 24 this year for the first time.
I did get a pair of boots, maybe.
I've been to the Rolex 24, but this is the first year that I worked it with a client, and our car that we sponsored came in second. There was a lot of
podium
excitement.
finish.
Podium finish was a lot of excitement, and just it's cool. I've not been around the sports car racing, so I'm sure we'll talk about that sometime. But
I know it's new to me too, and I feel like I have so much to learn because I don't like to be behind.
But while you're here freezing your ass off, John got to spend time with his best friend Michelle from college and best friend Cliff. We went to the USA soccer men's national football team. Got to sit with my mentor Dill. Got to be with Bryson and John Burrow. All kinds of guys in Atlanta. Really great, meaningful time. So,
and I'm just momming it up here for everybody that needs a mom.
We spent half the podcast talking too much about our past, but that's what's happened. We've had a lot going on. Now we're going to talk about.
You didn't talk about our new resident.
Oh my Lord.
That was a very important.
Okay, so.
That was when we got back from Hawaii.
When we say new resident.
No, not Hawaii, when we got back from Brazil.
We have the way Catholics feel about Mary, the way Cowboys feel about George Strait, or no, more like Will Rogers. The way Texans care about football. Suzanne has a new obsession.
I don't think it's new.
Oh, dear God. As soon as you got that dog, there's been nothing. That dog sleeps with you. That dog goes with you in the car. That dog is everywhere with you. So a year ago, we lost Cowboy. Cowboy was our Australian shepherd.
Almost a year.
Yeah, almost a year. He was your shepherd. He followed you everywhere. He was your buddy. And when we had to put him down, there was a big hole in your heart.
It was.
And as we head down to Brazil, Suzanne has discovered, well, first off, you have the same way that I planned a Corvette purchase. Mm-hmm. You have been thinking through what you want in your next dog.
Well, I knew what I wanted.
You love the Australian Shepherd.
I wanted another Aussie, but I wanted to go smaller because Cowboy was so big, and he and Bella didn't get along, and that was hard for me. And I knew I wanted a smaller dog, so I was thinking mini Aussie, and I was gauging the time of if it would be good for her. And you have to think about Bella too. She's very active. She's very kind of possessive.
She's my dog. Yep.
She's
the queen of the house.
Talk about therapy. When I took her to the vet, when she was a puppy, Dr. Vicky said, "Oh yeah, she's special." And I was like, "Do you think that I would have an animal in my family that would not have ADHD? I mean, I don't understand how that would even be possible." So she had to have like doggy ADHD meds when she was younger, but she's 7 now. And so I'm thinking this is a good time. This is a good time to introduce another dog. And so I did some research.
And you decided you wanted a smaller mini. You wanted a mini Aussie.
I was going for mini Aussie, yeah. Just because I wanted that breed, and I thought that was the smallest that they were. I didn't know that they got any smaller. And so while we were in Brazil, I did a lot of just, scrolling your phone as one does when you're waiting around in airports and layovers and stuff like that. And I happened to just come across a lady who's a breeder in Kentucky.
Just happened to come across her.
I did. Mine really was happenstance.
Okay.
I saw one of my friends on Facebook, one of my bonus kids, they had liked.
Well, let's go ahead and say this podcast is brought to you by Teresa's Awesome Aussies.
Yes.
And Teresa is from Kentucky. And I'm going to speed up Suzanne's story here because Suzanne picked out a dog. She said, "This is the dog."
You're going to speed up my story?
I am. There were two dogs.
I was just trying to.
She had 2 dogs.
You
picked the one you wanted. You told her you wanted that dog. And then she posted on social media the next day while we're in Brazil, both dogs are gone. And you're like, oh, well, she obviously means she's saving that one for me. And
I went back and looked, and she had this picture of Phoebe, she was
before
a
that,
toy.
she sold the other dog. She sold the other ones, and you thought she was holding it. And then she said, "Well, I don't have another one, but I do have this one toy."
And when she said toy and sent me that picture looked exactly like Cowboy, but on a wee small scale. So I was in love. Immediately, I was in love.
Well, here's where we're running into problems.
I wanted a female. All the things
Teresa,
added up.
Teresa did not plan on selling that dog because she had taken that dog into her own house a month before. And when you're a breeder and you get attached to a dog, and all of a sudden
she was the last one, and she was the smallest
she's ever bred. Mm-hmm. So she was like, "Okay, I'm not getting rid of this dog." Well, first off, there's a price difference from normal Aussies to mini Aussies.
Yeah.
Mini Aussies are more expensive because they're boutique dogs. Guess what? There's a price difference of about double when it comes to toy Aussies for mini Aussies. But let's not get into that.
Especially if the breeder doesn't want to
And
give
the
her
breeder
up.
doesn't want to sell it. And then the breeder says she's going to deliver it. Anyway, let's just say that Suzanne's Christmas, birthday, anniversary, and maybe next Christmas all came
Oh,
in October.
stop. She wasn't that expensive.
And if you're one of Suzanne's friends and you judge everything based on the price of a bag, this was a Birkin baby. So anyway.
It was not.
Okay. So we got Phoebe. You love Phoebe. If we had people
I was
who
surprised, and you surprised me because she had made it very clear that she wasn't going to give me the dog.
I went online. I made a deal with the lady, and then she says, "What am I supposed to tell your wife?" I said, "Tell my wife that you've sold the dog." And then so on Monday when we're coming back from Brazil, you have lost it.
I was in the
sold the dog.
I was in the airport.
She
and I was
sold the dog.
over
She
it.
sold the dog. She was so mad about it, and then she started searching for the.
And then you were
Well, here's
mad
the whole
and
thing.
told me to
Here-
shut up
no,
about
so
it.
It was coming on Wednesday. So on Tuesday, Suzanne says, "What do you think about this dog?" So you're already looking.
Did you already know then?
Yeah, I already closed the deal. It was coming on Wednesday, and on Tuesday you're like showing pictures. And
I was desperate,
and like,
man.
what do you think about this dog? And I finally just, and this is before the election, I said, "Suzanne, I've got so much stuff going on right now. Can you just stop with the dog talk? Can you
Hurt my
I
feelings.
have the election coming up. I have this. Just stop talking about the stupid dog." Fully knowing I'd already purchased the dog, and she was coming the next day.
I know, but you hurt my feelings.
Well, you didn't talk to me for like 8 hours. And
I
that
know.
Night I said something
I was
like,
done.
I said, "Do you want something for dinner?" "Oh, are you talking to me again?" You said, with that tone of voice.
Well, yeah.
And the next
because
day
you've
you were
been
still. The next day
snippy.
you were still mad at me until all of a sudden the door opened. And if you follow Suzanne on social media, you saw this video where she just kept saying, "Oh, shut up," or something like that.
I couldn't believe it.
I'm just glad watching that video you didn't drop a few F-bombs because you were all excited.
Yeah.
So
'cause
anyway.
sometimes that happens.
Okay, so let's get to therapy.
I think Phoebe has become my therapy.
Oh, you do?
I think
dogs
she's
are
been
therapy?
very super helpful.
You
Yeah.
talk to her?
I talked to her. Well, she's very comfortable.
I always say horses are, even though horses are expensive, they're cheaper than therapy because for some of us that do own horses,
I don't think horses will ever be cheaper than therapy.
once again, a lie I'm trying to sell. So, no, in our
I've known
family,
you too long.
let's just throw some things out there real quick. In our family, ever since our kids have been around, we've always called a therapist or a psychiatrist the talking doctor.
Yeah.
And we encourage our kids to go. We're blessed, as you know, with kids on the spectrum. And so we have worked with mental health and social workers and psychiatrists and psychologists for years on the best way to parent our kids. In that process, I even lived, I mean, this sounds really weird, but I lived with a psychologist and somebody who taught at University of New York, or NYU University in psychiatry while I had that place in New York. It was her place. We've been surrounded by wonderful mental health professionals for some time. Some are friends now. All that's saying is we believe that therapy is a wonderful thing.
We had so many therapists, even before our kids had therapy. We had so many therapists to get to the place where we are in our marriage.
We'll talk about that. But all I'm saying is there's a cultural. I didn't realize this until when we went through the COVID epidemic. And one of my projects was to work with Dr. Matthew Sleeth on that, doing the research for the book about suicide from a Christian perspective. Wonderful book if you want to go read it. It's called Hope Always, and it basically talks about suicide from a Christian perspective. Dr. Matthew Sleeth was an emergency room doctor. He said every single shift there was somebody who tried to end their life, and he was trying to save their life. And,
So sad.
But anyway, the book is incredible.
And because we lived through part of that with our daughter.
We'll talk about that. But as we were going through
Very
that, one thing I
pertinent.
learned as I interviewed an African American pastor friend of mine, I did not realize that within their community, he said, "John, do you realize that within our community, seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist has not been acceptable, hasn't been cool until recently."
And I think that's a lot of different cultures.
Well, and I shared
Very much
back when I
so.
worked the Boy Scouts. I was in our team meeting, and I was very transparent about mental health and talked about going to therapy. And I had Brian Cabanban, if you remember Brian, who worked for me.
Yeah, I forgot about
Super
him.
great guy. But Brian, he's Filipino, and
Our kids loved him.
well, I love him, and because I could always raise my eyebrows and point my lips the way they do in Philippines. But anyway, I love the Filipino people. But he and I were talking. He says, "John, do you really go to therapy? And I said, of course. He goes, well,
He was surprised by that?
Yes, because he said, in my culture, if you were to go to a therapist, you were basically admitting defeat, that you are a weak person, or you have problems, or you have, like, it basically like a
So
man.
is that the same thing that they thought in the African-American community?
Well, no, it just wasn't accepted. I mean, for cultural, as I was explained, now we'll have to ask somebody else, but it was explained to me by Pastor Jay, who's the pastor at Eastern Star, that he said it wasn't accepted culturally that was something that other people did. It was also something that, we don't need that, type of a thing. And so
to just suck it
but
up.
Pastor Jay was the first one who said, I now have learned to say, you need Jesus, but you also need a therapist.
Right.
Because even though you come to faith, whatever the faith that may be, it doesn't cure all the things of your past and those type of things. So,
Well, I just remember, and my mom and dad always prayed like this. They would, of course, believe in healing and divine healing, but they would also pray for doctors, like they would pray, Lord, please guide the hands of the doctor that may be doing a surgery, or give the doctor wisdom on what we're supposed to do. And I feel like that's great. If you're a praying person and you want to pray for healing, that's great. But you can't just not have a doctor.
Well, so I wish that everybody had, you have to have a physician, a family care physician. I choose to go to a nurse practitioner instead of a family care physician. So
Jules does, your mom does.
Well,
have them all set
I
up
personally
that way.
think that nurse practitioners are the future of family medicine, and I love dealing with a nurse practitioner because they have a spirit of caring. My friend Gail, we call Nurse Gail, she's taught me that a lot, that, it's nurses come at it from a different perspective. And so I appreciate a nurse practitioner.
I
But
appreciate
think
my personal nurse.
Well, I think that everybody everybody should have a family care physician, nurse practitioner, whatever. But they also need to have at least knowledge of some place to go when they have mental health issues. And I mentioned that book about Dr. Matthew Sleeth, and some of the things that I learned through that book were, most churches. You think the church would be a place where you should run when you have problems. If you have alcoholism, the church knows how to handle that, because they go, oh, we've got a meeting on Tuesdays. It's called AA down the hall. If you have cancer, they go, oh, you have the same kind of cancer Brother Bob had. We're going to do a meal train for you and get you to the doctor. We'll take care of you. But if you go into your church and say you're having thoughts of self-harm, depression, anxiety, whatever, pains from your past, whatever that may be, most churches don't know how to deal with that. And then what's funny is,
I don't think it's that they don't want to. I think that they're not always equipped.
Here's the issue that I found, or at least I think I believe. You have incredible people who are called to ministry. Let's take Reverend Dr. Friend of ours. He has a doctorate of theology. Mm-hmm. Okay. He's not trained as a counselor or a psychiatrist, on the mental health side.
He does counsel, though.
I know, but there's a difference on the relational side.
Yeah.
But my whole point is and I'll back up. One thing I learned in the Matthew Sleeth book, that he gave like 3 different reasons why people won't end their life. One of those is if they're connected to purpose. If somebody is connected to purpose, that they feel like they have a purpose in their life, they won't end their life. Mm-hmm. Well, psychiatry stops at faith. And a lot of the faith community starts at faith and doesn't go backward. And so it's like, I think every single pastor, and the beautiful thing about that book was that there's a toolkit for churches to build a mental health strategy inside their church. Because when there comes a time when somebody is considering ending their life, that's not the time for a pastor to hand them a Jesus tract or try to pray with them. When they're thinking about ending their life, they need to go to a crisis center. They need to go see a mental health professional immediately. We had that situation in our family when there was a moment when Julianne told us at 11:30.
I don't feel safe.
February the 10th that year, 11:30 at night. I asked her, and I know the words came from the Holy Spirit because I've never said those words before. But I said, "Are you having thoughts of self-harm?" And she nodded her head and said, "Yes." And I threw her over my shoulder, and we started walking out of here with her screaming, not wanting to go. And you're like, "Wait, what are you doing?" You were mad at first, and I said, "Honey, we've passed the line of being parents." When she said she's having thoughts of self-harm, we're out of the game. Like, it's time to tap out and find a mental health professional who can actually help her. We're blessed in our area that we have 2 crisis centers here. I hope that every parent who lives in central Indiana knows that St. Vincent's has a crisis center, Community has a crisis center. There are others out there. But I would encourage every pastor, this is another thing, to not only know the therapists who are in your area that you can refer people to, but also know the crisis centers, because crisis center is it's the ER for mental health,
and we were lucky in the fact, like, I wouldn't have known this, but my bestie, whose husband is a police officer and has worked, had to do things, take people there, pick them, whatever. He knew what was the place to go. And so because she works with youth, I had the resource to call someone and say, where do I take her? Where should I go? And I have to know right now. Whereas a lot of people don't, and who would they call? I was lucky to have that.
But if when J. Daniel cut his finger and we had to go to the ER, we knew where the ER was.
Exactly.
And I encourage everybody, find out where the crisis centers are, just in case one of your friends or one of your children, somebody needs to go to the crisis center. I will tell you, the lowest point in my life was when you and I, there's a whole nother story about it took several days for her to actually go into a crisis center, go into an inpatient program. And I will say St. Vincent's and God saved her life. She's an incredible adult now. She learned all the...
Not that she didn't struggle.
No, but she lost her ninth grade year, but she learned all these coping skills. She's a resilient, incredible kid. But what I was going to say is the lowest point in my life was when we released her into the crisis center, and the door closed, and we were no longer involved.
And I had to just leave her.
And we held each other.
And we
cried because you feel like you were at the absolute failure of a parent. Mm-hmm. And that deep depression that we were hit with all of a sudden, like, how did we fail? And then you have to turn that to prayer. And every time Jesus says he'll be there through those hard times, that's what we found. But having said all this, and we'll go back to the fun therapy kind of conversations, but don't be afraid to go if you are facing anxiety in your life, if you're facing struggles in your life, if you're facing, decisions and, you're just not happy. At the end of the day, we want all three of our kids to be happy, and we want our daughter-in-law to be happy.
Yeah, and I mean,
sometimes it's medication. Sometimes it's behavioral therapy.
She has just shared this week, so I feel like She, Natalie.
Okay, our daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Which I will applaud her. This week, she went on Facebook and shared very deep,
very raw,
intimate, raw feelings, which I know that Facebook for most people is, let's just see what people are eating for dinner, let's see where vacations are going on and that kind of stuff. But my daughter-in-law shared that last year was a really hard year for her, that she went to the crisis center, that she's dealt with things. And I wanted to cheer.
And then... just the fact that she was able to share that now, and that she's at a point now where she feels safe to share that with everybody in case they need to come to her and ask those questions. Where did you go? Did it help you? Why did you go? And that kind of thing. And this was just last weekend. She was really feeling it. Like, she called me and she said, I feel crisis center bad. I don't feel good. This is a bad day. Can I come over? And I, of course, and
That's a coping skill, which is good. She learned.
And she came over, and she actually had a telehealth appointment with we just have a family psychiatrist, and so she has done all three of our kids. She's helped us, and now she is our daughter-in-law psychiatrist, which is funny. But she had an appointment with her, and they found out through this appointment that she was not using her medication the right way. It was not enough. Her dosage was wrong. And I talked to her yesterday and I said, how do you feel? And she said, I feel like a totally different person. So you can't figure that stuff out on your own. You have to have somebody that is a professional to monitor that, and taking medicine is okay.
Well, and I think, when
a lot of people feel like that's just, I'm not going to take any medication. You would take it if you had diabetes. You would take it if you had a heart issue.
Yeah. And I've shared this before. My mom, I was raised with a mom who was manic depressive, and she would, it was always a struggle of getting the right balance of lithium and getting different things. And she, she would go through highs and lows and different things, and the lithium, getting her on the right dosage and all that kind of stuff. I remember just watching that struggle, and to see it in my kids, it's like, J. Daniel and I and everybody, it's like, once you get the medications right, it's great.
Yeah, and if for some reason something happens, like it happened for J. Daniel, where some of his, I wasn't able to get it, and I thought, oh, well, it's it's just the Zoloft part. It's not the ADHD. No, it all works together. And if you don't do it the way it's prescribed, it's not going to help you.
Okay, so you hear our message. Take mental health seriously. I'm so thankful for athletes when, like 4 years ago in the Olympics, when the whole big deal and was, she heard about mental health, and you have people who are out there on a national scale advocating for help, for positive mental health. You have it in schools, you have it in churches, you have it in government, and all this kind of stuff. But it goes down to friendships and telling. So for Natalie to tell her friends, "Hey, I struggled," and encouraging her friends. Hopefully, one of her friends will, when they go through that same time, will go, "Oh, Natalie's been through this."
And,
so if you're listening to this,
she's doing well.
Yeah, you're not alone. I will tell you, we'll end with this kind of story. Now, Suzanne and I have been married 35 years. We almost got divorced at 10.
I know. Can you believe that?
We have been, I know.
I mean, look at us.
You're awesome. First off, anytime there are marital problems.
Do you think anybody else would live with either one of us?
Okay, first off,
I don't know.
I think my friends will line up. We've talked about this when I'm dead to marry you. You'll fatten up.
They just want to eat.
They do. Well, and some other things that you do well. But no, we almost got divorced 10 years. And we went through, and I tell people, we went through 4 different marriage counselors. The first marriage counselor we went to was referred to us by another couple friends of ours, some of our best couple friends, who ended up getting a divorce. But we went to this.
He obviously did not work out.
We went to their marriage
anybody.
therapist, and he was the guy. It was the closest thing to he had the stuffed animals on the sofa.
He's a little bit like Mr. Rogers.
He had the Mr. Rogers sweater and the picture on the wall that said, "You're going to be great."
No. It was let go and let God.
Yes, and it was a Christian counselor. And the first time, I had no respect for this guy. But Suzanne,
we were super desperate though.
We were, and I
young.
stopped going, and then you.
This was before kids.
Yeah, and he wanted to see you alone because there was. First off, we had. Think about everybody's parents. Like my parents, when they faced financial struggle, my dad dealt with it in the back room. Never told my mom. He figured shit out. He
figured it out. Yeah.
Your parents. Literally, we had a therapist tell us that if your parents would have gotten divorced when you were 8, you would have been a lot better off. Because what was modeled in front of you was a bad marriage.
Yes.
Everybody who knew John and Theda Hall knew how bad, and it was so bad, it was comical how bad their marriage was.
Yeah.
And people would be like, it was humorous to know that
everybody knew it was bad. But they just kind of accepted it.
And they're Christians, and you don't get divorced.
You don't get
Stuff.
divorced.
But what's funny is they got along. I mean, like your dad would love nothing more than to be in church and be with preachers and all that kind of stuff, and your mom could care less about all of it.
My mom just wanted him to be a husband, and
anyway. But he would be on the road traveling. But it was anybody who knew John and Theda knew that their marriage was bad. So as we went through therapy, part of it was I remember that particular therapist saying, "Suzanne, we need to talk about your view of marriage." Now, he was basically
saying, "Okay, just erase what we did. We need to start over because what you got going on is not good."
Me, I replicated what my father did, and that was, I'm dealing with problems. I don't tell my wife. I hide them and go in the room and figure it out. Because he loved my wife so much, he put her on a pedestal. He didn't want to bring her through the darkness. So she never knew what they're spending, when they're bad money wise, or if he was losing his job, or he hid things from her.
And you don't really do that to a bipolar.
No. Your mom, on the other hand, not only would share and overshare, she would scream it until you heard it, or in the middle of the night, or wake you up and tell you, anyway. So
throw dishes from the dinner table.
Yes, and there are some Thedas that come out in you every now and then when you throw a plate at me or something of that nature. But we went to 4 marriage counselors. So the first one was that one. The second one is one of our friends today.
Oh, yeah.
But
Good friend of ours today.
The problem with that was
he was our friend.
He was our friend, and I was doing youth ministry with him, and
there was just too many.
Yeah, and I was involved with sin with other people in the church, and it was like this was not the right person. I couldn't be honest with him. I loved him, and I still love him to this day. And I think if I would have been at a place of transparency, he would have been great. But I couldn't share with him, so I was hiding, and that's one thing. Don't go to your therapist and just tell him half truths,
But that's what most people do.
Yeah, be honest.
And I've had mom friends that their kids are going to therapy, and they come back and they say, "Well, Mom, I don't even want to go because I feel like it's not helping," and it comes right back around to the kid is not telling the therapist.
Well, I had a doctor once tell me, he said, "Yeah, if somebody tells you they smoke 2 cigarettes a day, that means they're a pack a day." Nobody tells the truth of those guys either. But okay, so the second one second one is a dear friend of ours. I wasn't honest. The third one, we moved to Oregon. The third one was a man's man. He had a plaid
I don't
shirt.
remember that one.
Oh, I do, because hold on, let me tell you. We went to.
He obviously made a big impression
I went to
on me.
him. He was in a plaid, like the lumberjack.
Was it just your
No,
therapy?
well, you came in. Let me tell the story. Okay. So I go up there. This guy's got boots. So here I came out of like Mr. Rogers, and then we went to Christian Friend, and now I got a guy who's wearing hiking boots. Looks like he's like in a Duluth ad.
Because it's Portland.
It's Portland, and he's a man's man. And so I tell him everything.
You did?
I told him everything I was going through, everything I was supposed to, blah, blah, blah. And and after a few sessions, he wanted to see you. And then
I don't seem to remember a lot
I seem to remember
this
because
maybe I blocked it out.
He
did
did the
so
one
bad.
thing that I don't think therapists should do, and that's break the client's trust by sharing things with you.
Oh, I do remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he shared things.
I did block that out.
He shared things with you that I had shared with him that I should have communicated to you, but I was not ready to communicate to you.
Oh my gosh, I totally blocked that out.
I was so mad, I would not go back to see him because he broke my trust. And,
But it was all stuff I already knew. I was asking questions and he was just confirming.
Either way. Okay, so you're the trickster. But anyway.
I am the trickster.
So, lost my job in Portland.
Thank the Lord.
Yes. That's the story someday, because lost my job in Portland. We moved back to Texas. We moved in with your parents.
Lost your job in Portland because of all that.
Well, yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. And my friend who fired me, didn't feel comfortable talking to me. And about 6 months later, I said, Mike, do you not realize you saved our marriage? Like, had you not done that, we went back to Texas. We moved in with your parents.
At our lowest of the low.
Yeah. Had 2 babies. Went to the therapist, number 4. Therapist number 4, let me just tell you about Mike Regan's. Therapist number 4 had been your parents' therapist.
Yeah.
So all the baggage that takes about 20 years to understand in Suzanne Hall's life,
he knew.
He knew. Now that helped. Number 2, Mike Riggins, he's
does
a
not
Christian
beat
guy.
around the bush.
He didn't give a shit about John Stewart or my ego or any of that kind of stuff. And 2 things happened. One was he looked at me one day and said, John, let me tell you what's going to happen. I don't really care. It's like, you're going to get divorced. Suzanne's really a young, pretty woman. She's going to remarry, and you'll get to see your kids maybe every other weekend on Wednesdays. And that scared me. The other thing that happened was one of our friends in Nashville got a divorce, and they were the most wonderful couple, and the man was an idiot. And that hit me, that I said, I don't want to be like him.
Because they had...
And then we also had a big
kids,
spiritual kind of prayer. People were praying for us.
We just really had
A Joyce Meyer, of all things...
Joyce
teaching book helped me break through the bondage, all this kind of stuff. But anyway,
we had a metamorphosis in our marriage.
God moved. But what I was going to say is that 4th counselor. So if you've gone to one marriage counselor, if you've gone to a second one, we went to 4. And the 4th one was the one that finally looked at us and said, okay, y'all are good. I'm like, wait, what do you mean we're not coming next Tuesday? No, you guys are good. And he basically fired us as clients because he said, your marriage is healed. Y'all can leave now.
And he actually said, I have seen couples come in here and their marriage dissolve. I have seen couples come in here and they have resolved problems. He said, your marriage is neither one of those. Your marriage has been resurrected.
Well, that's nice.
And I thought, that's crazy. Does it mean that we don't argue? Does it mean that I have not left the house in tears and, our neighbors probably have heard us scream and fight? That still happens.
Yeah.
Because living with another person is not easy. I don't care who you are.
Even though I am pretty great. So, those who are not watching the video didn't see you roll your eyes, but...
The eye rolling is out of control.
No, it is hard to live with somebody else, but I will tell you, we've been married 35 years, and looking back over the past, and I'm so blessed that there are a number of couples that we know today that have come to us when they were in their hard times.
There are things that I never wanted to revisit, that I revisited because I felt it was laid on my heart to help this person.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with the therapy.
And right now, we're not therapists. We believe in therapy.
I've been to therapy enough to probably have a diploma on my wall.
No, but we're so thankful that God continues to place people in our lives that we get to love on. And as individuals, as clients, as friends, I mean, we talk about this. There are certain people who we wish we could walk away from, but we know we're not supposed to. And so anyway, thanks for sharing your therapy stories with me, Suzanne.
my therapy stories or your therapy stories?
Do you have anything else you want to talk about therapy? Because I'm going to end this with some therapy jokes. Because I thought we'd lighten the load.
You and John Andrew did have to go to therapy.
Oh my gosh, we did. John. So
that's a good one.
This is a good one. So yeah, John Andrew and I started a business together in 2016 or whatever it was.
Can we just, if you don't know John Andrew's diagnosis when he was young, he not only had ADHD, but he also had ODD, which is...
It was ADHD with oppositionality disorder.
Oppositional defiant disorder.
Oppositional defiant disorder. And I was the trigger.
Yes.
And we were combative through his teenage years.
Like physically combative.
And like I've shared this, I stayed behind as the cub master and let John Andrew go into Boy Scouts so that he could do it on his own without me. And he was a great guy without me.
He's outgrown a lot of...
But what I was going to say is we had a really combative time. And then when he was like a junior or senior... And I knew about the ADHD with oppositionality. We fought, and how many times did you tell me that's not what the therapist told you to do? Like we would get into it, and I would,
and that's what we would fight about. Is that I said I'm the one that sits through therapy, and they tell me what to do, and you're doing the opposite.
Yeah. Anyway, that's human nature.
And now he's going to therapy talking about you, like we went to therapy talking.
Every therapist, every kid of mine is going to therapy to talk about me. So what I was saying though is we did not know until he was a junior probably that he was also on the autism spectrum like Jay Daniel.
We knew there were
different. We knew he had ADHD, but they're like, no, he's on the spectrum the same way that Jay Daniel is with different things. Well, what's funny about that was all of a sudden I felt like a failure parent because we had early diagnosis on Jay Daniel in first grade.
Yeah.
And we every year.
But he's very textbook, black and white.
Exactly. John Andrew. Then I just felt like, oh my gosh, that was my breaking point. Mm-hmm. So when he graduated high school and the two of us went into business together, God used that in the autism community. It's called sheltered employment, which is where parents or friends or local people create employment for those who are on the spectrum so they can transition into professional life. Mm-hmm. It's worked perfectly in John Andrew's case because he was unemployable at 18. And then when he was ready to go to work, like 4 years later after running the barn, every single person he interviewed with tried to hire him.
Right.
Because he was a hard worker, had a great work ethic and honesty, and he could get...
And he had managed teenage girls, so he knew exactly... Yeah.
Anyway, but the whole thing is, we, at a point in our working life, I was so frustrated. Why are we doing this business? First off, the business never made money. So why are we spending this money if he's not going to do what he agreed to do? And it was
y'all just butt heads on every
why is he not doing
thing.
things my way? Listen to that. I learned before therapy. I was saying, why is he not doing things my way? Rather than letting him discover his own way, and sometimes his way was better. Usually his way was better.
You still struggle with the your way or the highway. I'll just say that out in the public.
Nobody knows that. So
everybody knows that.
So what I was going to say though is the two of us, father and son, co-workers, business partners, we went to therapy and it was so healing.
Because you came to me one day and you said, I can't do this. You kept threatening to close it down. And it was so much. And I was feeling the pressure. You can call my friends. Like I was weeping. I can't take being the middleman anymore. So
even in those relationships, go to therapy. Okay, here we go. I'm going to end with a few jokes I found.
Okay.
Therapy jokes. You ready? Have you heard of that joke about gaslighting?
No.
Yes, you have. You're crazy. Yes, you have. I told it to you last time.
That just sounds like a regular conversation with Theta.
Okay, client. Yeah, client says to the therapist, "I'm terrified of the Backstreet Boys." Therapist, tell me why.
That's really bad.
A guy walks into the therapist's office wearing nothing but saran wrap. The therapist takes one look at him and says, "Well, I can clearly see your nuts." There you go.
That's the kicker.
That's Suzanne's type of humor. How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? One, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Oh, that would have been a sign in that guy's office.
Yeah. A Freudian slip is when you say one thing, but you mean your mother. How many Freudian psychologists does it take to change a light bulb?
Just one?
Two. One to hold the light bulb and one to hold the penis. Ladder.
Oh, boy.
Freudian
Where did
slips.
you even find these?
I got good things.
You've got a good producer?
What's the difference between a therapist and a client?
I don't know.
Eventually, the client gets better. By the way, what's the TV show that you like about therapy?
So good. Shrinking.
I'm like in season 1. Or no,
there's only 2 seasons.
I just finished season 1. It is good. My therapist said
if you haven't watched Shrinking, I will give you the lot of language. a lot of language, but it is fantastic.
Okay.
Like it's a must.
We're almost at
Apple
1 hour
TV.
mark. So here we go. My therapist said he was going to show me ink blot test to the. My therapist said he was going to show me ink blot test to internet, but he just kept showing me pictures of my parents fighting.
You messed that one up so much I didn't even understand it.
He showed him ink blot test.
An ink blot, like the
ink blot test. And he says, I don't know.
whatever.
He said he was going to show me ink blot test, but all he showed me were pictures of my parents fighting.
Oh, so all he sees in the test are his parents fighting. Okay.
Oh Lord, why did the narcissist cross the road?
I don't know. You probably know the answer to that one, though.
Because he thought it was a boundary. I'm not a narcissist.
Mine was funnier.
By now, nobody's listening, so kudos to you.
Okay. Who listens to me? Oh, see, there you go.
Thought all these voices in my head meant I was crazy. But one of them is a therapist, and he says I'm fine. Anyway, I will end by saying, I had a friend that said, John, it's not just that you have ADHD. It's that all your multiple personalities have ADHD. So there you go. All right, so join us next time. Thank you, Suzanne, for doing a podcast again. I can't wait to start doing this again and again.
We need to get on a regular schedule.
We do need to get on a regular schedule. So join us on our next podcast. I think it's going to be in about a week.
Really?
Maybe 2 months. I don't know. Join us on our next... Actually, we do need to do a podcast because season 3 will start after February the 12th.
Oh, my birthday's coming up.
That's why I was going to tell you. Join us on our next episode where one of us is having a birthday. You know,
but that's both of us.
Well, we're going to do it before mine. Love you.
Love you.